Is anybody here? I heard maybe there are people here who like dogs. I don't know. Okay, we're in the right place? Great.
So we have service dogs, and we're here to talk about service dog. And Brian conducted an incredible studies. I volunteer for the Guide Dog Foundation. That is a similar organization like Companion, a canine companion. And I raised 10 dogs, and 5 of them made it, and 5 of them didn't make it. And then statistically, it's what happens. A lot of dogs that are raised to become service dogs failed. And so Brian and Vanessa, and the book talks about it, but we're talking about it tonight, decided to try to find a scientific way to try to predict earlier which dog would be able to make it instead of being trained for 2 years and then the dog would fail to be a service dog. The dogs that I had that failed to be a service dogs were too playful. They got distracted. One was limping. We couldn't figure it out what was wrong. So you didn't want to have a service dog that might develop difficulties. So, and other friends adopted them, and they were very happy with the dogs. But you made these incredible studies involving your student at Duke, many puppies. Can you set it up so you understand the scope of this experiment that you've done?
Thank you, Isabella. And you know, part of the excitement of being here with you tonight is that you agreed to do the audio version of the book.
Yes.
So if you want to listen to the book, you can hear her amazing, storytelling and reading narration of our book. So. And when you agreed to do it, there was like a cheer in our house. Like, are you kidding me? This is amazing. And, if you thought reading a puppy book was fun, in her voice, it's even better. Okay. So the study is really trying to solve the question that you laid out, which is dogs can be great. I think everybody here agrees dogs can be great. And many dogs are great dogs. The question is, why is it that some dogs, and in the case of Canine Companions or Guiding Dog Foundation or most any other working dog organization, usually if you're graduating about half of your dogs through professional training, you're really running a great program. But what about the other half? What's going on there? And is there a way that we could sort of do something that might help get more dogs out doing more work for more people? Because the need is there. There's no shortage of need. And so the question is, could we figure out? And so really nobody had looked at this problem from a cognitive perspective, asking the question, is it that the reason that some dogs may or may not make it has something to do with their psychology, something about how they remember things or something about how they communicate or how they connect socially and bond with people? Is it something about how they make inferences and how they reason or how they don't reason in some cases? And so that's what we set out to do. And we did a whole series of studies with adult dogs that led us to realize that really the holy grail was to ask that question about puppies. Is there something about the puppy mind that we could pick up early in their lives, somewhere between 8 and maybe 16 weeks of age, that would tell us or give us some kind of predictive value of who that dog might grow up to be when they're older, and whether it would help us understand how we might invest in one dog or the other depending on what prospect it looks like their cognitive profile might predict. So I don't know, maybe now is a good time to roll the video.
Yes, so you'll see some of the
Because you guys all say you love dogs. Maybe we should watch some dogs. And this is a video that quickly explains the program in the cutest way possible.
Yeah. Oh, you're a good boy. Oh, you are a good boy.
Pretty cute.
So the experiment was based in raising the puppies traditionally, which is through volunteers. As if you want to be a volunteer, or if you are a volunteer, you get a puppy when he's about 8 weeks old, and you keep him at your home for about a year and a half. And you just have to train them to be a good dog, really. I'm one of these volunteers. You don't have to train them to guide anybody, but they have to be polite, that you cannot sleep with them in bed, you cannot feed them from the table. And there are certain games that you want to do that might become useful for them when they are older. We'd never play fetch because it would stimulate running after things that are moving, but I would hide the ball or I would hide the toy, and the dog will play to look for it, because eventually they can transfer that easily and to say, find the keys, find my gloves, find my scarf with the person they're serving. So that's one way to do it. And so they are raised in a family. And at the Duke University, they wondered if some dogs were at the Duke University and they were hyper-socialized, and you used all your students to really make sure that the dogs were exposed to everything, because our role is to really expose the dog to everything. They have a little coat, like these dogs here, that allows them to take them to subways, to restaurants. You mimic for them the life they have to have. But if you hyper-socialize them, would they have a better chance of becoming a service dog? That was the question.
That was one of the big questions, yes. And so it all depended, though, having a puppy kindergarten on a college campus. And you can imagine when I went to my university administrators and said, hey, I have this idea. Why don't we raise dozens and dozens of puppies on campus? They immediately said yes. But once we got past that, the question was, well, wait a second, I'm gonna need a lot of help, because if we're gonna do dozens and dozens of puppies, Vanessa and I, my wife, Vanessa Woods, who we did all this work together, and she, was crucial to the next part, which is we're going to need a lot of volunteers. And so we didn't know, like, okay, it sounds like something that Duke students or college students might be excited about, but they're busy people. They're busy making good grades. They're all going to med school or whatever's. Are they really going to want to raise puppies? I don't know. And so we did one Facebook post. I don't even have a Facebook page or anything, but we did one. Somebody did it. Vanessa did it. And we had 1/10 of the college student body sign up. So I got really scared at that point. I was like, oh my gosh, what have I done? We're going to be the most hated people on campus because we're going to tell a lot of people no, because we only needed maybe like 60, 70, 80 volunteers, and like about 700, 800 people signed up. So we figured out how to get that list winnowed down, and it ends up that the project ran for about 5 years, and we've just finished the first grant cycle. And during those 5 years, we had over 600 volunteers. They volunteered over 50,000 hours, and we raised 55 puppies on campus. And the reason we call it hyper-socialization is because if you're on a college campus, unlike if you're in someone's home, you meet a lot of people. And these puppies, and we kept track of it, so we knew how many people they met. They literally met thousands, not hundreds, thousands of new people in the 12 weeks they were with us. And they went all over a college campus, and lots of places that could help them build their confidence.
They went to classes, they went to sports, to the cafeteria.
Hospital, everything. And so one of the big questions was, is this going to have a big impact on how their cognition develops? Because we know at this stage, when we started the puppy kindergarten, we knew from adult dogs and adult canine companion dogs. We also knew we'd worked with the Marine Corps with detector dogs that find bombs. We knew a set of cognitive skills that were very important for their training success. And so the question was, when did those develop? And did this rearing shift it around? And it's going to sound very disappointing what I'm about to tell you, and maybe the show's over. I'm like, why do we come? But actually, we found zero difference. Now,
But
if I had made...
you find out many things about dog cognition and development that would be useful if you want a pet dog. That is the greatest, the great value of the book is this, I think, because we all have pet. I mean, I have my service dog, but I also have my own dogs.
Yes, and so that's in finding out that it doesn't really do much to do this hyper socialization. Vanessa and I started to think about, man, everything we're learning here is so important for people at home with their pet dogs, because we did learn a lot, and we did the first study of puppy sleep. Nobody had ever studied puppy sleep before. And how it develops. We have looked at metabolic development, how the energy in a puppy's body develops over time. We've also looked at their emotional development, and obviously the cognition as well, and their activity patterns as they develop. And so we have this beautiful set of data that we talk about in detail in the book. The reason that it's important to talk about not finding a difference, though, is that's why you do the science. I really, and Isabella and I were talking about this, I really thought that if you hyper-socialize the dog, that if it's good, it's going to be great if you do it extra. And it ends up that you're enough. You're enough at home. You don't need hundreds of Duke undergrads to raise an amazing puppy. If you want a dog to have confidence in the world, socially and physically, whatever we're doing at home is enough. So that's a big lesson. And then, we can talk about some of the other fun things that are relevant too.
Now, I would imagine that all of you are dog lovers and you are wondering, and that was a question that I've had. I know that you can select for certain talents, and we have dogs that are more talented at herding or hunting or guiding. But are there certain breeds that are more intelligent than others? And also that because it was Stanley Coren that did a big study and selected certain breeds as more intelligent or more cognitive than others. But you verified, and even that was a different result.
Yes, and so this is, Isabella, you're gonna get me in trouble. Okay, here we go. Because there are lots of people who have very strongly held beliefs about what it means to have a dog of one breed or another. And so Stanley Coren did a study where he asked 99 professional trainers, what do you think the most trainable, obedient dog breed is? And so they answered and gave a list that ranked a familiar group. Poodles is number 1, German Shepherds is number 2, and I think maybe Border Collies is number 3 or something like this. We'll put it up on the screen in a second. But we actually had a lot of folks like you do citizen science and play games that we developed at Duke through dognition.com. It's an online citizen science project. And we just give you instructions on how to play a bunch of cognitive games with your dog. And we have different measures, different types of cognition. Eye contact, like how much eye contact a dog makes with a person. How good are they at using gestures, like when you point? And how good are they at remembering things? And then we looked at about 70 different breeds that we had enough data with. And it doesn't really match what Stanley Coren might have argued. And in fact, I don't think you can rate breeds as the smartest or not smartest based on the data.
It's the electronic world that allows you to do much more data, because you had thousands of people doing this experiment that you set up, and they answered you through social media. So you have an incredible amount of people that before it was impossible. It was a much less group of dogs or people that you were working with.
Yeah, that's right. We have data from 20,000 dogs because 20,000 people volunteered. And of course, in a lifetime as a scientist, I could never collect that data. It's like the Audubon Bird Project, et cetera, eBird, if you're familiar with that. So it's kind of like that. So people collected the data. They got to learn about their own dog and then contribute to what you're seeing now. So what you're seeing on the screen, though, is eye contact, for instance, is critical for social bonding, et cetera. And you'll see that, there's 3 dogs there that are sort of making the most eye contact that I wouldn't have guessed, I wouldn't have known. And if you go to memory, well, actually, 2 of the 3 dogs that were top at eye contact are not even on the list of the top 3. So you can't really make the case. And who knew that, the Bernese Mountain Dogs were going to be the best at using pointing gestures? Like, I wouldn't have guessed that. What? If you actually go measure and you actually ask dogs questions, you're surprised. And the punchline is, there really isn't a smartest breed. The different kinds of cognition doesn't map onto breed group. There are definitely smart dogs, and there are dogs that have different cognitive profiles, but breed is going to tell you a lot about what your dog looks like, not its intelligence.
Well, individual differences. So some dogs, like for humans or for chickens or for sheep, there are individual difference and personalities. And that because I live in a farm and I have a lot of chickens, and I was surprised when I started volunteering for the Guide Dog Foundation. I wanted really to see many, many dogs to verify if dogs had different personalities. Because I had dogs, but in your lifetime, if you have a dog and they live 15 years, how many dogs can you have? 5 or 6? And it's not enough. And each was different from the other. One was aggressive and barked a lot. The other one was very friendly and played a lot. And it was such a distinct personality. And I thought, if I work with the Guide Dog Foundation, I can have a dog every year, a year and a half, and I can verify. And then I started to farm. And I tell you, not only the dog have different personalities, but chickens have different personalities. Sheep have different personalities. Sometimes based also on the breed, but also in the individual. That is no doubt. So now we're going to talk about evolution, because one of the things that I found it fascinating, and I want Brian to do a quick talk about evolution, is that dogs are wolf, and wolf ate us, and now they sleep with us. They are our best friend. How this happened, can you tell a story of 20,000 years in 1 minute?
Go. So different ideas. One is that some people grabbed some puppies and were like, hey, let's make dogs. That's one idea that people have liked. But another idea is that actually some wolves chose us. And that actually natural selection selected dogs attracted to human artifacts, human places, and humans. And the reason that story seems to be in favor today, and I would be a proponent of it, is because the first story is hard to reconcile with the fact that dogs evolved before agriculture, where all people were hunters and gatherers. And as you said, they were directly competing with wolves for food, or maybe they even became wolf food. Really? They thought, hey, let's bring some wolves home and raise them and feed them and turn them into dogs? I don't think that's what happened. Instead, as humans became more productive, we did what we do so well, unfortunately, today, is we create a lot of garbage and waste. And that garbage and waste is absolutely irresistible, as you know from what's going on with coyotes and other animals that are invading urban spaces to take advantage of what we create today. I think that same process happened with hunter-gatherers.
They came, they were aggressive, you will kill them. If there was a nice wolf, you let it be, because he ate the garbage. So he was a kind of a service. And little by little, something happened that changed them physically. Floppy ears, patchy coats, and the wolves started to look like dogs. And docility, if you start selecting for docility, which is a trait in the behavior, it can also affect them physically. And so that's why there is such an enormous difference. Now we've made a mistake, I think. About 150 years ago, we started, where we understood we can manipulate dogs and the looks of dogs, we started to make them cute and to our eyes, and not select anymore for temperament. And this is one of the mistakes we do. So we get dogs that look very cute, but very difficult to live with. And still today, when we select dogs, we generally go for looks instead of temperament.
Yes, so that's one of the amazing findings, again, from genomic work, is all the European dog breeds we'd be most familiar with, their origin goes back only 150 years. But we know from genomic work as well, comparing dogs and wolves and other canids, that dogs began evolving from wolves somewhere between 15 and 40,000 years ago. So what was going on for thousands of years before the Victorian era, where people decided, hey, I want to have a fancy looking dog to make me stand out in the crowd and get attention? That's where we think a lot of natural selection and this selection for friendliness happened. And as Isabella said, that genetically, a lot of the physical traits are actually tied developmentally to traits that are behavioral. So there is work, experimental work, to show that these things are linked.
And I'm sure that some of you would say, how do we select a dog? And I would recommend not selecting it for looks, but for temperament. And if you go to the ASPCA and all that, they have a profile of the dog. So you could say, I have children at home, I have cats, and they can match. Like just the matching, the services that match men and women. They do that also with dogs. I would like to show you the film that I have done with the Guide Dog Foundation that talks about the job of volunteering, because it's really wonderful to raise guide dogs, and you become part of a community. You have to give up the dog after a year and a half. A lot of people say, how do you do that? And the first dog was really hard, and thank God he failed, so we could adopt him. But the second and the third, you realize that you become part of a community. And so it is not really hard. But this is the video that we've made with the Guide Dog Foundation about the volunteer work.
All right, prepare for serious cuteness again. I almost died when I saw this video. Be ready.
I'm an actress and a model, and I traveled a lot. And one day I was in the theater, and I went on stage and did my scene. And then I hear the audience laughing, and I didn't know what happened. And the dog had left the dressing room and came on stage because he heard my voice. The door was ajar, and he came on stage. So I said, stop, I'm sorry, I volunteer for the Guide Dog Foundation. This is my puppy. I'll be right back. So I brought the dog back. And I think what is really rewarding now is to be part of a community. I didn't take that into consideration. I volunteered for other things, but this is the best volunteering. I've done this for 20 years, and the other time I volunteered didn't take so much because it is so moving, and it is so wonderful to work with the puppy and then meet the people that they're going to help, and you feel so proud to be helpful. Well, the dogs, you can take them everywhere. They have a little coat. It allows you to take them in the subway, in the train. And actually, it's very important that the dog comes with you all the time, because your principal responsibility as a volunteer is to socialize the dog. Mimic for the dog the life that he's going to have with the person who's going to serve. Very good socialization with other dogs, very good manner, but it also teaches you about how to raise a dog. If you are assisted by the Guide Dog Foundation, you know how to teach the dog sit, stay, don't beg for food at the table, don't jump on beds and sofas. And it is a little heartbreaking when they're going away, but you get another puppy right away. That's the cure. And you're so proud. And then eventually when they make it and they're assigned to a person, being a volunteer for the Guide Dog Foundation don't really teach you about dog, but teaches about life. Life is tragic and wonderful at the same time. What better ways to teach that to my grandchildren than raising dogs and playing with dogs who eventually would serve a person who may not see, or it might be epileptic, or is coming back from the war. I mean, it really is a sweet, wonderful way to introduce life. So that the dog that I do now, because I'm older and I have a hard time walking too much, and it's difficult to walk these dogs that They come to the home at 8 weeks, all the way till a year and a half. So now I have breeder, and the dog you see there, her name is Rosie. And Rosie, this is the second litter. This summer she had 4 puppies, and the first litter was 12 puppies. So we were very busy. I don't know how she made 12 puppies. And they stay with me until they are 5 to 6 weeks old. They weaned from Rosie. They start eating, and then they go back to the Guide Dog Foundation for the vaccination. They have the first checking to make sure that everything is okay with them, so they can then be assigned to a volunteers that would take them from 8 weeks to a year and a half. And some dog already there, they are weaned off. For example, of the 12 puppies that Rosie had, one was blind from one eye. So he was adopted by a family. So as they go along, you see sometimes that this dog doesn't make it. But generally you raise them, and then they are trained by a professional trainer. They are matched to the person. One of the first matching that they do is gait, the speed of walking, because dog will have different speed of walking than people. And also we do. I know my mom walks so fast. I always remember running after her. And so that is, and also talent of the dog. Some dogs might be a very guide dog. Some other dogs can be a good companion or other things. So that's how they do it.
So one of the things that's amazing about guide dogs is, and one of the things that's so impressive of what they do is a cognitive feat, because if you're a guide dog, you are listening to the person that is your teammate, and they're asking you to go here or there, but they're of course going to be sight impaired. And so what happens if they're asking you to go somewhere that is dangerous? So you have to ignore them. You have to show self-control. You have to actually say, okay, I know I'm supposed to listen to you, but now I have to actually not listen to you, ignore you. And the fact that they can reverse between when I do listen and when I don't is remarkable. The other thing I can tell you that's so fascinating that may be surprising is there's been multiple studies looking at whether guide dogs know the person they're leading is blind. And the answer is they don't. There's no evidence that they can recognize that someone can or can't see. They do treat different people differently, sighted people who they're walking with versus those that are blind, but there's no evidence they know that other people are blind. So it's incredible that they're able to learn this, hey, I have to take control here. You're going to put us in danger. I need to control and work around it.
I've noticed that a lot of guide dogs, they always look back to make sure that they're followed, as they guide the person. So they may not know they are blind, they don't see, but they feel this person, something, is irresponsible.
Yes.
And I am in charge. But it's true, they can reverse a command.
Yes.
If you want to cross the street because you don't see the car, and the dog is completely obedient, the dog has to reverse and disobey to save you. I'm going to tell you a wonderful story of my dog Jojo that I raised. And Jojo was assigned to Stephen, who couldn't see. And Stephen and friends went to Las Vegas. And they lived in a little house, a ranch house in South Carolina. And Jojo was raised in New York City with me. So when Stephen decided to go to Las Vegas with his friend, they decided to take one dog, Jojo, 3 blind people. So they went all holding hands and one dog. And they were playing with the slot machine. And they were having a lot of fun. They made noise, the slot machine, so you know when you're winning and when you're losing. But then they wanted to go back to their room. And the slot machine and the elevator made the same ding-ding sound. And so they were disoriented. They couldn't find the elevator. And then Steve said, Jojo was raised in New York. Therefore, he might know the word elevator. And he said, Jojo, find the elevator. And he remembered, and he took them all to the elevator and to their rooms. So immediately Stephen called me saying, Jojo remembered elevator. And they have a very, very long-lasting memory, the dogs.
So there's a story in our book because one of the main characters is Congo, And Congo was a retired service dog that came and lived with our family and became our family dog. But when we started the puppy kindergarten, which he didn't necessarily volunteer for, but he became the principal. And he was really, a mentor for many puppies and was incredible with so many young dogs. Not one I was more nervous with the Duke students than I ever was with him around all these puppies, nipping and running and whatever. He was incredible. But at one point, Canine Companions, one of the main trainers, came to visit, and we just all started to talk because as a retired service dog, he had not been asked for years any of his commands that he knew from working with somebody who was physically disabled. And there were somewhere around 20 or 30 commands he had not heard in years. And so she decided to take him into the lab and just ask him some of the old commands. And he remembered 3/4 of the commands after years of no training. So if you're wondering, can dogs remember things for a very long time? The answer is yes. All the movies of returning soldiers, etc. I think that's a real thing.
Yeah, really. Brian, are you intending to continue the studies? I mean, some of the dogs, they are still in training of all the dogs that you raised at the puppy kindergarten.
So we had 50 dogs we raised, 55 we raised at Duke, and then another group that we raised in people's homes. So we had 101 puppies in the end, and we've had different cohorts. And so some of them have already gone through to college. We call it professional training college. And some of them have made it and some of them haven't. But a lot of our cohorts are still growing up and aren't quite college age yet. So we have to follow them for the next few years and see what's going to happen, because ultimately we want to see if their cognitive emergence, how their cognitive abilities, all these different things we measured, and the order they emerge, the speed they emerge, does that predict whether or not they will graduate or not? And if it does, then we can use that to predict in the future in young puppies, which puppies probably have a cognitive profile that suggests they're going to be very probable for making it through college or not. So we're going to do that. And the other thing I should share is that we're going to keep, and we report some of the other findings that we've already made, but we will keep, looking at our data for other interesting things that are relevant to how people should raise their own dog, or things that would be helpful for people with any dog. So people ask me, like, what's the most important thing I learned from raising, dozens of dogs? Because often, and you can imagine during the pandemic in particular, we had many dogs at our house, many puppies. And I will tell you that, many sleepless nights because we had so many puppies that were a weaning age. Your puppies were, I don't know what it is to have dogs before they're whelped. Yeah. Before they're weaned, yeah. after they've been whelped, before they've been weaned. But we had dogs that were weaned and then until they were about 16 to 18 weeks. And that's the period where you're first taken from mom, you're on your own, you're now in a human household, and you've got to learn how to be potty trained, sleep through the night, etc. So that means there's lots of sleepless nights for a few months. And I can tell you this, because a lot of people, it's a big question when you're getting a puppy. Do I go get the crying puppy or not? Mm-hmm. Is the puppy crying to manipulate me? It's a question that we ask about our own offspring. And the answer I can give you now definitively, having done this with so many puppies. Before 13 weeks, go get the puppy. The puppy has to go to the bathroom, for sure. They're not trying to manipulate you. They need to go. After about 13 weeks, you can start kind of thinking, you have to use your best judgment, but definitely by 15 weeks, they should be able to start making it for longer, 4, 5, 6 hours. And that's when you can start maybe thinking, okay, I don't know if I need to go get the puppy now. But before 13 weeks, please go get your puppy. Second thing, and this is the most counterintuitive perhaps, is when you take your puppy out to the bathroom the last time before they go to bed, you would think the thing you should do is take them out, they go to the bathroom, and you bring them back in. That is a mistake. It is a mistake I repeatedly made again and again and again. The correct thing to do, and you will thank yourself and sleep much more soundly, as will your puppy, is you set a timer for 15 to 20 minutes. And you go outside, and regardless of whether the puppy goes to the bathroom or not, you stay for 15 to 20 minutes, because dogs go to the bathroom in bouts. And puppies in particular, takes some time, and especially there's some, and I can tell you they have personalities about this too. We had some dogs that would go to the bathroom a bunch really fast, and there were other dogs who they had to think about it for a while. They had to go wander around, and you're like, oh my gosh, I want to go to bed. Come on, but just set the timer and you will sleep much better. That was one of the big things I learned from raising dozens of dogs.
In fact, one of the things that the dog learn, and we teach them from right away, is to pee on command. Because if you are a service dog, you have to, and this is, and it maybe is the hardest thing to teach. Sitting and lying down, obedience, coming with their name, that's easier. There is another thing, they have to pee on concrete because they tend to want to pee on grass. And I don't know if any of you has dogs, but I've had dogs that in the city I had to find just a blade of grass and a crack, otherwise they wouldn't pee. So that's the way we do it with the puppies. Early in the morning, I know they have to go to the bathroom, so I walk with them to the street and then say, get busy, that's the command, and then reward them. And they learn pretty fast, but it might be the hardest because it really goes against their desire to pee on grass. Nowadays, I have mama dogs, so I know puppies from day 1 until 5 weeks. They are born, they are not bigger than this. They closed eyes, closed ears. It's only by 10 days that you start seeing a little shine on their face, and that's one eye opening, then the other. But you don't know that they see, and the ears then get, they are kind of glued like this, and then go, and it's only by the 3rd week that the dog starts walking around and reacting if he sees something. And I have raised several puppies, whelped several puppies, and mothers are different. There are mothers that are with the puppies all the time and very worried, and there are mothers that have to do the job. They come to empty their breast and are engorged with milk, and then they leave. So they are different types, not two, but the personalities and also motherhood is very distinct.
So one of my students, I'm proud to say, her name's Emily Bray, and she's a professor at University of Arizona now, but she was an undergraduate with me, did her thesis, and got infected with this idea of studying dog psychology. And she did a study on exactly this, where she looked at, it was with a different organization, Guiding Eyes for the Blind, but she studied how the moms raised young babies as they were being nursed, and she categorized moms into either helicopter moms or sort of laissez-faire moms. And in that population, what she discovered was that the helicopter moms who, all the puppies, are raised in sort of those plastic bathtubs, the kiddie pools. Yeah. And so the puppies are in there and they can't get out. So mom can come in and out as she pleases. And the helicopter moms are the moms who, they were always in the pool. They were always helping the babies nurse whenever they cried, et cetera. And the laissez-faire moms were like, yeah, I'm going to leave the pool. I'm going to let the babies cry it out for a minute, and I'm going to take a little relaxing moment. And in that population, she found that actually the laissez-faire moms, those puppies had a better chance of graduating and becoming the guiding dogs. So that would suggest, and when that study came up, I was like, oh, of course, laissez-faire moms, But then what happened was with canine companion dogs, it was the exact opposite pattern.
Yeah.
The helicopter moms are the moms that these predict performance graduation with those dogs.
Yeah, so it doesn't even tell us how to be, what kind of mother we have to be. Rosie, one of the worries that I had, Rosie had 12 puppies, the first litter, and then the second litter, she had 4 puppies. She might have 4 litters in the life, and then around when she's 6, she's now 3 years old. But I think when she's 6 years old, she will retire, and I will adopt her. Right now, she's officially a dog that belongs to the Guide Dog Foundation. I have to use their vet. They tell me what to do, what food to give her, what medicine to give her. I have to take her often, not that often, but once every 3 months. They might have a reunion with all the volunteers, obedient class, because they are monitoring also Rosie, because Rosie has to have the talent to be a guide dog. And that's how you go selecting. These dogs have been bred for docility, obedience, and you cannot just have any dog be a service dog. So these are very, Canine Companion or Guide Dog or Seeing Eye Dogs, all these organizations have people that select the male and the female and to trying to obtain the most successful puppies. And when the service dog started, it was around the end of Second World War, we did improve. Now we are about 50%
That's
success.
Right.
At the beginning, it was much less. So the selection of these dogs and their temperament is helping. And Brian is trying to speed it up and learn more about it. I was wondering if Rosie would get depressed when I would send the dogs away, because I whelp many dogs. Generally, they send me a dog that is pregnant 2 weeks before she has the puppies, and then she has the puppies, and then I send everybody back home to the Guide Dog Foundation when they are 6 weeks old, the puppies, when they are weaned from the... But 2 years ago, and I'm Catholic, they called me Christmas Day saying, oh, there is a breeder dog who now doesn't have a place to stay. Can she come and stay with you just for a bit, because it's Christmas, then we'll figure it out. And I said, well, I'm Catholic. You called me saying there is a mama dog that is looking to have babies and she don't find a place? Of course Rosie can come. So Rosie came to stay with me in 2022, and we love her. But, you know, the first dogs, when the first litter she had, 12 puppies left, I said that Rosie had, and the left, I thought she would look for them, or she was, instead I said she has postpartum euphoria. She was so, because she could play, she could see other dogs, because we live in a farm. I live about a mile from my farm, and so I separate Rosie from the other dogs, just in case, because I don't want her to be infected with any diseases or bring a bacteria to the puppy. So she lives in the garden with me and everything, but she doesn't play with other dogs. And the first litter she had was she was 3 years old. She wanted to play with other dogs. So she had postpartum euphoria. But this time, when she had 4 puppies, she did look for them for about a day and a half, and then she stopped. So I wondered if it was the many puppies that she said, oh, please take them. But 4 she can handle, and she was much more attentive to the 4 puppies that she has been through the first litter. But I don't know if it is because the first litter and she's learned, or because there were so many. Although I give them only 6 at a time, I would separate the puppies. It was good because some of them were black and some of them were yellow. So I was 6 and 6, so it was easy. And so she only had 6 puppies because she only had 8 nipples, so she couldn't breastfeed them all. But with the 4 puppies, she looked for them for a day and a half. You know, she went around looking for them.
So Rosie is my hero, and it's a great place for us to now turn to the audience, because we've shared some of our stories, yeah. Rosie and Congo. And before I do that, though, what I want to do is just make sure I call out one colleague. We have a graduate student from Boston College, Karen here, who works with Angie Johnston and is the local canine cognition guru in Boston. So if you're wondering, is there anybody in Boston who's working on this? The answer is yes. Angie Johnston at Boston College, and her graduate students in the second row right here with her canine companions dog. So you can talk to her after, and you'll be up here next year. Okay. So with that, we have an iPad full of amazing questions that I'm going to just blurt out loud. I'll go through and see. Are you ready, yeah. Isabella, for what's up here? All right. So, okay, here's a good one. this is for you, definitely. Is there evidence to believe that other animals like mice have personalities?
I think so. I mean, I think so because chicken have personality. Sheep. At my farm, I have chickens, sheep, and goats, and they have very distinct personalities, just like dogs or cats. So I imagine, and I would imagine. I mean, Brian, you will confirm. I would imagine that individual differences are essential for evolution because that's how evolution operates. You can pick up one difference and emphasize it. That's what we do with the guide dog. We emphasize the docility, the obedience, the calmness, if you want a guide dog. But if you want a police dog that is very looking for drugs, you select that kind of dog that is hyperactive and always looking for things. So what you mean by selecting, you get a dog that has that temperament with another dog that has that temperament, hoping that the puppies will be like the parents. It's an inheritable trait. And you build on that, and generation after generation, you can get a very successful Beagle Brigade that we find at the airport looking for drugs or agricultural product, or calmness in guide dogs.
So yes, I would say my answer is definitely even mice can have personalities. And echoing what Isabella said, let me ask another question here. So I might take this one. It says, so hypersocialization didn't have much impact on overall cognition. Did you look at other psychological impacts such as confidence or resilience under stress? So yes and no. So my postdoc and graduate student who worked on the cognitive data is ahead in her education than the person who does the temperament and emotional reactivity. And the person who's doing that is in her fifth year, is graduating this year, and is doing the analysis and writing it up right now. So it may be that actually raising them differently, it didn't impact the emergence of cognitive abilities related to training outcomes, but it could be that it is related to their emotional activity. Isabella, before we were talking, before the show, we were talking about this finding, and you made the good point that it was important to point out that just because there isn't a difference between sort of normal enrichment and hyper socialization, it doesn't mean that, not socializing a dog is okay. That's not the finding. The finding is wonderful enriched socialization is very, very, it's critically important. And even in your nursing dogs, it continues to be important as dogs are weaned. The finding is just that what we normally would think of as good socialization is probably enough, and there's not a way to do it better. But certainly a dog that does not go into novel places, meet new people, will not be a dog that is confident, and probably will have many of the problems with anxiety, with fear, that can lead to a lot of relationship problems with humans. And it is really one of the most important things to avoid. So let's see. This is for you, Isabella.
Oh.
This is a good one. Isabella, I adored your mother. Did she love dogs?
Yes, she did.
Was your family a dog, cat, or both family?
Yes, my family, my mother was an actress called Ingrid Bergman, and my father, thank you, and my father was a director called Roberto Rossellini, and they both loved animals. But I think I loved them more than them. It was clearly, I was really born with this distinctive love for animals. My work has been as a model and as an actress. But when I was 14 years old, my father read a book called King Solomon's Ring by Konrad Loren, who is the founder of the science of animal behavior. And he gave it to me, and I read it, and I really it was a little lamp bulb went on my head, and I said, this is what I want to do when I'm a grown-up. But I grew up in Italy, and at the time, that was the late 60s, 70s, there wasn't any animal behavior, environmental sciences. There was biology, zoology, and I wasn't a very good student, so I didn't go there. I became a model, I became an actress. That was part of the family tradition, and I loved it. And it was only when the job slowed down because I became older, then I went back to university for my master in ethology. But yes, it started with my parents. They always had dogs.
And I have to tell you that when we met, I actually only knew Isabella Rossellini through her amazing vignettes on behavioral evolution. And I thought, whoever this person is the best science communicator I have ever seen. I don't know who Isabella Rossellini is, but man, Green Porno, Mamas, and the other little science vignettes. You have to watch them if you haven't ever. I show them in my class. It is always the day I know my students will be blown away.
You can find them in YouTube, but they are in the Criterion collection. It is a very kind of refined.
They are amazing.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad you did that master's is all I'm saying. All right. Another one. There was another one down here that I was thinking would be perfect. Oh, you might enjoy this one. Do dogs see us more as parents or buddies?
Well, first of all, when you said see, one of the things that that always intrigues me is how do they see? How do they smell? Animals perceive the world different than us. We have 5 senses, but the dogs, they have different senses. They apparently do not distinguish the same colors as we do. They are less sensitive to the different colors. So chickens see more colors than we do because they can see in the ultraviolet range. They smell much better than us. You can tell them always, investigating with their noses, and we don't because our nose is not as sensitive. They hear better. I remember my dog always running to the door before we can hear my mother's car arriving because she could pick it up before. So they do perceive the world differently. Do they see them as a companion or parents? I don't know. I think they're social animals. They want to be with us. The sheep also are social animals. They are always together. And if one gets separated, she cries and cries until, incredibly, sometimes, my sheep, sometimes one gets separated because they're grazing. And then the other walks away and she's distracted, she's grazing. And then, bah, 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 she calls them. And sometimes I go up and I just say, come, come. And they follow me. And they wouldn't follow somebody else. They know that I'm leading them. So I don't know that they see me as their mother, but they see me so sure as a friend, somebody that can help them. My sheep, my chickens, when I go to the farm, they run up to me. If I go with a friend, they stay back. They look at the friend. They analyze before they're coming. So definitely they identify people as dogs do. Dogs do the same. But I don't know, what do you think? They obey dogs, but I don't know that they see us as parents, more as a group.
Yeah, I'd go with buddies if it was me.
Buddies, yeah.
I'd go with buddies. Yeah, for sure. So I've been given the signal we have time for one more question. Before I ask that question, I just want to remind everybody and thank Canine Companions and our wonderful dogs for coming. They'll be around. You can meet them and hear more about their organization. I'm looking forward to signing books. Let's see what this last question is here. There's several questions actually that have the same flavor. There's curiosity about what is the role of rescue and shelter dogs? Is there something magical about Labrador retrievers and why they're used in these programs? Or is it that there is a role for shelter dogs? What I can tell you, I know Isabella has experience with rescue dogs as well, but what I can tell you from the scientific literature and the approach that working dog groups take that I'm familiar with, there is a program, for instance, the USDA uses shelter dogs and trains them for Customs and Border Patrol. It's a very successful program. The success rate is much lower they have to work with about 20 dogs to get maybe 3 or 4 that are successful. But it's okay. The rate is lower, but you're finding some dogs that can, really do a rock and roll good job. Labrador retrievers and golden retrievers tend to be used in these programs basically because it's a dog that people are attracted to and not afraid of. They're big enough to do the work they need to do. But are there other types of dogs?
There was a German Shepherd. It was very popular. But what happened with the German Shepherd is that, again, for looks, we wanted to be like this. We wanted them to have a slope in their back, and this ruined the hips. And so sometimes it's very common in the German Shepherd to have problems with walking as they get older. So the German Shepherd, you remember Rin Tin Tin, that dog? Rin Tin Tin was brought back from First World War. They were bombed a German police place, and everybody died, but there was 2 puppies that survived when the American soldiers got there, and they came back home, and the female died, and the male survived. And then the guy lived in Hollywood, and he became an extra, and somebody was looking for a dog, and he said, my dog is very obedient, and he became Rin Tin Tin, one of the biggest star in the 30s. And that was a dog that was selected by the German police for obedience, to respond to men. So there is something to be said. I'm not surprised that the rescue dog that are trained have a lesser, they all have it, but when you select, after several generations, you can establish that trait that you need for service dogs. So I'm not surprised. We, at the Guide Dog Foundation, they also tried to do poodles because people are not allergic to poodles' hair. There's been some difficulty because they are very playful, but there will be other breeds that would be, because you cannot, if you breed only one, after a while you might have, is it called bottleneck? Mm-hmm. You start, you have to diversify. You have to have more genetic variation.
So with that, thank you very much. Thank you, audience. It was such a delight to be here. Thank you, Isabella Rossellini. So fun to be on the stage with you.